It's not often that we get companies that admit that they've been outclassed by the other. And Microsoft usually is outclassing Sony in one way or another. And so it's very interesting when Sony actually admits that they've been outdone by Microsoft and that they can't match what Microsoft is doing, which I thought was a very interesting yet kind of fun thing to talk about. So I wanted to get into this. Again, a lot of people are going to say a lot of different things when it comes to Microsoft and Sony. They're two different companies, two different end goals, two different approaches, and I think that the sooner that everybody realizes that, the better off we're all going to be. So it's always kind of frustrating when people look at Microsoft and go, oh, well, they must be failing horribly because they're not announcing sales of this or sales of that, when clearly they've moved into a different direction with Game Pass and things like that. Game Pass being their main modus operandi, so to speak. And so when you do see these types of things come about, I always kind of question it and go, Microsoft has really kind of come a long way with how they used to be. They used to only stick to Halo, Gears, and Forza. If a game didn't do extremely, extremely well, they really didn't give it much of a chance. You weren't going to see a sequel. And this was still a big problem, even last generation for them. Game Pass has given them the ability to move beyond that, thankfully. So I want to get into this. As PlayStation says, it has no intention of competing because it can't against Xbox Game Pass with day one PlayStation Plus launches. Again, it's weird because Stray apparently had a lot of success on that, but Sony's shying away from it, obviously. I mean, listen, they still like to tout those, hey, we got 2.5 million sales in the first 3 days. The thing is, with sales, when it comes to sales and these types of things, you're going to get a big bump right away, and then things die down, just like movie theaters, right? At a grand opening, you're going to get your highest amount, and then, by the next week, it's not. You have a 70% drop in revenue or whatever. So this is similar to what happens with games. Some games have long legs, but a lot of times, we don't see like long legs with games until after the games have been deeply discounted. A good example of this would be Alan Wake. Notoriously sold poorly out of the gate, went up against Red Dead Redemption, if you could believe that. And then eventually it did get to 5 million sales, but it was like 5 million sales after it was reduced to $5 and on like Steam for $2 and things like that. So Sony hasn't changed his mind about holding back its first-party games for Xbox. They said they're happy with their strategy. Subscription boss Nick McGuire told Game Industry Biz, putting games in a bit later in the life cycle has meant that we can reach more customers 12, 18, 24 months after they've released. We're seeing customers still get excited about those games and jumping in. For us, that's working. Occasionally there will be an opportunity to invest in a day and date like Stray, and we will jump on those when they come in. But for us, letting those first-party games go out to the platform outside the service first, that's working and will continue to be our strategy moving forward. It's pretty much in line with what Jim Ryan has said. Putting first-party games up on the subscription day and date would cause a virtuous cycle to be broken. Ryan did leave the door open for this strategy to change in the future, but it seems like that hasn't come yet. And why would it? Because they're getting a big chunk of money up front. And let's just be real, you would probably have to lose something in the near short term to get these games to go out there and be in a service, right? Like Starfield, people are like, oh, well, what's the deal with Starfield? Well, look, Starfield is still going to have pretty big numbers. I think it's still going to have good sales. I bought it. A lot of people are going to buy it. There's people on Steam, they're going to buy it. And so I think that things are going good in that manner, but obviously the goal is that it's going to lure people into Game Pass as well, because would you rather people buy one game a year for $70, or would you rather them subscribe to Game Pass year after year at $180 a year? Right? Like, I think it's pretty obvious which one you would rather have. You get that returning income. That's why, a game like Fortnite is so popular and so big. It's free, but people are, spending money on skins and stuff like that. And that money makes a ton of, that game makes a ton of money. So that's exactly what happens. So PlayStation Plus does offer some day one releases, just not first-party games, but McGuire does note that one such release in the service's biggest success, Stray has brought in the highest number of players that have access to the title over the first 12 months. A post-launch first-party edition, that multiplayer Ghost of Tsushima Legends got the other big subscription metric with the highest number of hours gameplays. He also explained that PS5 game streaming is in the work with PlayStation Plus subscribers, which is at least one option that meets Game Pass on its own terms. So they're switching over very quickly to kind of do and echo what Microsoft is doing. And it makes sense because people want to down Microsoft and put Microsoft down for what they're doing. But the truth is Microsoft is ahead of the curve. And a lot of times they're ahead of the curve a little bit too early. Like the Xbox One, some of those ideas were a little bit too early, I think. But we do see some very good instances here where they're just right on time. And I think when it comes to putting day one releases in the platform on Game Pass, I think that makes a lot of sense for what they're trying to do. Now, is that going to cannibalize big game sales? For sure, right? And don't try to throw that Phil Spencer quote at me from 6 years ago about games sell better. Things change, and if you have to look at the context of what was going on at that particular time, and he was talking about how like a small game will go into Game Pass and then somebody's playing it and they tell their friend and their friend doesn't have Game Pass, so they go and buy the game. It's a completely different situation than what we're kind of seeing right now. Obviously, if you could, a lot of people, they work hard for their money. People don't realize that. If you have a minimum wage job and you're making, what is it, depends on where you are. Here, I don't even think it's $8 an hour, but, you're working a whole day of your life to afford one video game, and so you can understand why, you want those games to be good, or why you would, so many people are kind of hesitant or wait for reviews or whatever. That's why they're spending their life earning these games, and people don't understand that, right? I get there's some people much better off than other, but at the same time, I just look at this and I go, listen, Microsoft, they did what's best for them. They wanted to do things a certain way. It's different than what Sony's doing, and that doesn't make it wrong. And, Microsoft and Sony, they're two different companies. They're going to be able to continue to do things in a different sort of way. And I like that about them. Nice to see that. So they don't have to do the same things. They can both be successful on their own terms. And that leads to much greater deals and things for us as fans. So I would love each of your thoughts and opinions on this. I'm the Crap Gamer. This has been Crap Gamer Reviews. I'm sure can't wait to see the dozens of people that watch this video. Thank you, appreciate it. Hey, I'm keep trying for the time being on the channel. Until then, rack 'em up. Please subscribe, like the video. Thanks for watching.